Hello, everybody. I'm Kristine Howard from the 167th. So in 2018, when I won election to serve in the state legislature, the year also marked the beginning of Governor Wolf's second term. Little did he know at the time that his new term was about to become one of the most consequential tenures any governor in the history of Pennsylvania was called on to lead. And lead he did. A global pandemic was about to infect our Commonwealth and nation, not only threatening our health and safety, but radically changing our way of life. The pandemic was only part of the challenge. We were also plunged into an economic crisis not seen in Pennsylvania since the mass downfall of the steel industry in the 1970s. Governor Wolf met the challenges head on. He wasted no time in issuing an emergency disaster declaration and took bold steps calling on Pennsylvanians to make great sacrifices, all while withstanding self-serving political attacks, legal challenges, and more. The bottom line is Governor Wolf's bold leadership saved countless lives, and Pennsylvania is now on a cautious but solid path to reopening our economy, our schools, our small businesses, and putting people back to work. Our coronavirus positive test rate is among the lowest in the nation, and our state is a shining example of how to do it right. Now the governor and all of us face a new challenge. A radical change to the United States Supreme Court could lead to the end of the Affordable Care Act and the legal precedent of Roe v. Wade. If that happens, thousands of Pennsylvanians would lose their health care, and women would lose their right to make their own choices in matters of reproductive health. These are trying times, and I am grateful we have a leader up to the task. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Wolf.
Thank you, Kristine. Thank you, Kristine. I appreciate that. When Pennsylvanians are unable to afford health care coverage, it puts their lives and their health at risk, and it puts the lives of their families, the lives of their communities at risk. And that's why in 2015, when I first got this job, I was inaugurated, and one of the first things I did was to expand Medicaid. And that expansion brought health care to almost 750,000 people in Pennsylvania. And it drove our uninsured rate to one of the lowest in the country and the lowest in our history. Now, with the COVID pandemic causing disruptions all across the nation and in Pennsylvania, this is not the time to make changes in our healthcare system, much less for anybody, but it's also not the time to do it for those who are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Rolling back the protections provided by the Affordable Care Act would have devastating effects on Pennsylvanians' health, especially, once again, in the midst of this pandemic. So I've steadfastly opposed any efforts to undermine the ACA, which provides needed health care and health care coverage to more than 1 million Pennsylvanians, 700 and some thousand for the expanded Medicaid, plus all the hundreds of thousands who are on the exchanges. So I'm going to continue to do everything I can to protect the health and safety of Pennsylvanians and try to protect, to the extent I can, their access to affordable health care coverage. The ACA made necessary improvements to health coverage for everybody, but particularly for women. Under the ACA, a wide variety of preventive care is available to women free of charge, including annual mammograms, well-woman visits, birth control, and breastfeeding support. And women cannot be charged more than for coverage simply because they're women, more than men. As I mentioned Tuesday, because they have a pre-existing condition, they cannot be charged more for that under the Affordable Care Act. Historically, women's health has often been treated as secondary to men's health, and they receive less research. Women's health receives less attention. And at the same time, women are more likely to not have their health care concerns be treated seriously by healthcare professionals. We know that women's self-reported symptoms are less likely to be taken seriously by medical professionals than men's concerns. And it's especially concerning when it comes to more invisible healthcare problems like chronic pain. And health outcomes for women of color are even worse, or particularly bad. Black women are more likely to be hospitalized due to asthma, diabetes, COPD, than anybody else. Black women are more likely to give birth to a stillborn baby than white women. And in 2018, black women were 5 times more likely to be living with chronic hepatitis B compared to white women. Women deserve more access to better health care, not more problems especially created by politicians. There's no role for government to step between a woman and her doctor for any health care decision. My administration has consistently pushed for improvements in women's health care. I've expanded coverage options. I've vetoed bills that restrict reproductive rights, and I've advocated against Title X at the federal level, including providing additional state funding to cover federal decrease in Title X funding. My administration has collaborated with a lot of organizations to implement programs that improve women's health care and their reproductive rights with a key focus on reducing maternal mortality. All of this supports the gains in free preventive care and the protections for pre-existing conditions that the ACA provides, giving women necessary control over their own health. That control and that access to affordable coverage for many Pennsylvanians is in jeopardy right now. A case brought by many Republican state attorneys general across the country is going to be argued before the Supreme Court in November. And that case calls for the Affordable Care Act to be rendered unconstitutional based on a change to the ACA, ironically, that was made by the Republican-led Congress in 2017. It's no secret to any of us that President Trump opposes the Affordable Care Act. He has called for it to be dismantled at every opportunity, and he has acted repeatedly to undermine the Affordable Care Act. In this case, he made the deliberate and really unusual decision to have the Department of Justice fight to invalidate a federal law. This is an unconscionable attack on access to affordable health care for Pennsylvanians. It's especially unconscionable when it comes to women. This case is not the only one that is going to bring the fight for women's health care and women's rights before the Supreme Court in the months and years to come, however. The next justice is going to join the court in ruling on many key issues of our day that have a very decided impact on women's health, including a woman's right to choose. The overturning of the ACA or Roe v. Wade would be devastating to health care for women. We're just a few short weeks from the general election, 4.5 weeks basically, when the people of Pennsylvania and the nation as a whole will make clear their wishes for the future of our country. And I call upon our federal elected officials to protect health care for women and for all Pennsylvanians by refusing to vote on a Supreme Court nominee, especially one who vocally opposes the Affordable Care Act and the protections it provides until the next president of the United States is inaugurated. Our own Senator, Pat Toomey, I think has established an excellent precedent here. He said back in 2016 that he thought at that point when Merrick Garland had been nominated by President Obama that he refused to vote on a nominee that was 11 months at that point away from the election because he wanted the people of the United States to make their decision at that point. Again, that election was 11 months away. Ours is 4.5 weeks away. With the 2020 election next month, I call upon Senator Toomey to do the same thing, uphold his own precedent from that time. At the time when our health care coverage for many Pennsylvanians is at risk, we must allow the people to have a voice in deciding the future of our country and our Supreme Court. Thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to Senator Tim Carney. Senator.
Thank you, Governor Wolf. I'm proud to be here with you and Representative Howard and be in this fight. I'm Senator Tim Carney. I'm proud to represent Easttown and Willistown here in Chester County, as well as parts of Delaware County in our Commonwealth Senate. We are in the middle of a pandemic that has exposed so much of what was already broken in our society, and few things are more broken than our country's healthcare system. Medical costs are the top reason that people go broke. Families from Malvern to McKeesport have to choose between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas because they're being crushed by medical bills. And that was before COVID-19 hit. Our families and friends are fighting for their lives on ventilators. Lucky ones who have survived are left with serious damage to their hearts, lungs, kidneys, and brains. The Affordable Care Act has made massive strides in expanding access to health care. Especially during a global pandemic, we should be strengthening the ACA to reduce costs and expand coverage. But the ACA is currently under threat. Right now, the Trump administration is in federal court trying to overturn it and rip health care coverage away from millions of people. If the courts repeal the Affordable Care Act, more than 5 million people in Pennsylvania who have pre-existing conditions will see their premiums increase dramatically, or worse, lose their care altogether. All this, again, during the middle of a pandemic. Those with pre-existing conditions, like the 11% of the Pennsylvanians who have diabetes, were already more vulnerable to COVID-19. But now, the 160,000 Pennsylvanians and 7 million Americans who have contracted the virus have a new pre-existing condition. President Trump is using every tool he has to take away health care and to end pre-existing condition protections for millions. While he's dragging his feet on COVID relief, he's ramming through a new Supreme Court justice to ensure the death of the ACA. We need to fight back just as hard because lives hang in the balance. We cannot wait for Washington to save us. The state legislature must step up to ensure people in Pennsylvania are covered and protected. That's why the very first two bills that I prime-sponsored as a senator, which is actually over a year and a half ago, these are bills that haven't moved at all, but they were bills that were designed to safeguard protections of the ACA in Pennsylvania by recovering coverage for pre-existing conditions and preserving essential health benefits. These bills put the health of Pennsylvanians first, and I hope we act on this legislation without delay. Finally, I want to make one thing clear. Reproductive freedom is a health care issue. We have seen constant attacks on insurance coverage for contraception, funding for family planning, and abortion access. With the Supreme Court battle underway, we need to protect these critical services now more than ever. With that understanding, I want to introduce our next speaker, Catherine Colbert. Catherine's an attorney who's been on the front lines of the fight for reproductive health care. And in 1992, she saved Roe v. Wade when she fought to preserve abortion access before the Supreme Court. I'm honored to be joined by here today. Catherine, over to you.
So thank you, Senator Kearney. Thank you, Representative Howard, and most importantly, Governor Wolf, who has done such a great job in preserving women's health care and reproductive freedoms during his time in office. The ascension of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court is extraordinarily dangerous. The Supreme Court will have a 6-3 vote margin, all conservative, many of them ideologically based in ways that fundamentally alter our understanding of constitutional law. We are in a crisis if that should occur. All of the rights that we as Americans hold dear, voting rights, civil rights, separation of church and state, LGBTQ rights, are in jeopardy because that majority on the court will eliminate or overrule noted constitutional protections. Now, one of the things I've said repeatedly over the years is when you argue a case in the Supreme Court or when you have a case there, it's a lot like Sesame Street. You have to learn to count. And the key number is 5. With the ascension of Barrett to the court, they will have 6 people to choose from. And that means that almost any issue can swing to the conservative side. There are 2 extraordinary threats that the governor already talked about, that Representative Howard mentioned, including the Affordable Care Act and our understanding of Roe versus Wade. In 1992, let me take that one first. In 1992, in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the Supreme Court upheld the hallmarks of Roe and permitted states to regulate abortion, but they could not prohibit or ban abortion. They must leave that decision to women. With the ascension of Barrett to the court, it is my view, and I think most pundits agree, that the court will again send that issue back to the states. And somewhere between 18 and 24 states will immediately move to prohibit all or most abortions. What does that mean? It means states like Pennsylvania, states like California and New York are the only place that women will be able to go because they have legalized the procedures there. And I want to remind us what life was like in the days before Roe. Women died. We don't know the exact number, but they died. Women lost their fertility. Women suffered irreversible effects on their families because they took money from their basic needs in order to pay for abortions or to travel to abortion to states in which abortion was legal. The harms they had, including having children that they did not want, were unintended and unwanted, made for very, very difficult times for very many women. And who suffered the most? It was poor women, women of color, teenage women. And that will happen again if abortion is criminalized in half of this country. So it seems to me our harms going forward may not be quite as bad as they were in the days before Roe, because not as many states will outlaw abortion. But we will be returning to a day in which women's dignity and autonomy to make important decisions about their lives will be undermined. The second really significant issue is a case that's coming to the court only a week after the election. And that is one that challenges the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. Amy Coney Barrett has already said she believes the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. She would be the fifth vote for that position. And it seems to me women suffer the most if the Affordable Care Act goes down. Why? Because millions of people, including mostly women, are now enrolled in Medicaid coverage. More women are on Medicaid than men. Millions of families will lose their health insurance in the marketplaces. And we will return to the days. Remember this, many of us forget what insurance was like before the Affordable Care Act. But we're going to return to the days in which there are no pre-existing conditions, where there are lifetime caps on benefits, in which women will pay more for health insurance than men. There will be no coverage for mandatory services such as pregnancy or birth control or mammograms or all kinds of women visits women need. And families will no longer be able to have their children on their policies up until the age of 26. The loss of the Affordable Care Act is extraordinary, and as Senator Kearney said, really, really mean-spirited in a day such as now, when the United States is suffering so many losses from this pandemic. So the question is, what can we all do? And I think this is really important. Number one, the most important thing is this fight isn't over until it's over. Contact Senator Toomey, tell him to live by his own rules that he established when Merrick Garland was nominated to the court, and make sure he understands that the power of Pennsylvanians are behind support for the Affordable Care Act and Roe versus Wade, and do not want this nomination to go forward before the next president is elected and in office. Second, and I think this is equally important, we need to preserve in Pennsylvania a legislature, a House and a Senate that is blue, that will preserve women's rights, that will understand the importance of these issues, and will work to ensure them going forward for the people of this state. This election, don't just vote at the top, vote all the way down the ballot, because we have an opportunity to turn 9 House seats and 4 Senate seats to the Democratic cause, and if we do that, we will preserve our liberties in this state going forward. Thank you so much. I want to turn it back to the governor who's going to take questions.
Thank you, Dad. Okay, any questions? Yes.
A judge allowed the gathering limits to be back in place. Are you aware of the ruling? Can you explain it? And can you also address what that means for anyone who, like Montgomery County, for example, hasn't had a process where you could apply if you wanted to have a larger gathering?
Yeah, you're talking about the stay that with the Third Circuit put on the judge's ruling, while the stay
Turned down and then reopened.
well, the stay was turned down by the district court and then approved by the circuit court, and the circuit court now has given itself time to rule on the appeal. So I applaud the Third Circuit's decision, and hope they come up with the right decision on the appeal.
What's that mean for Pennsylvania? Does that mean the 250 is back in place?
It's back in place, but I keep working with the schools. I mean, we have to recognize we have a virus out there, and I don't like it. You don't like it. No one likes it, and yet that virus is out to get us. And so we have to be careful about how we gather together, and I think that's the important thing. At the same time, we've got to make sure that we're being reasonable and realistic about how we do things. And so I'm doing everything I can, listening to folks, and continue to change, as I did with restaurants, and we'll continue to look for make sure that the guidelines we have in place are reasonable.
So if there was a school that had a plan for a larger than 250 gathering for, say, a football game, and they have that plan in place, can they go forward with that, or is that?
Well, right now we're back to the 250, but as I say, I'm working right now with school districts and others to do what we can to recognize the contexts that are different in every community.
Right. So what's that mean for, say, Friday nights? So say there's a football game where a plan was put in place for more than 250
You'll
people.
have to stay tuned. We're working on it as we speak. So today's Thursday. Yes.
Hi, Governor Wolf.
Hi.
Natasha Brown with CBS 3 in Philadelphia. Just wanted to get your reaction, first of all, most recently the presidential debate with President Trump mentioning Pennsylvania a couple times, actually, obviously criticizing the state's shutdown, and also specifically talking about bad things happen in Philadelphia in reference to the election process and what's happening there with the satellite election centers that have been opened up and set up. What are your thoughts just about that and what he's saying about those issues?
Well, first of all, the debate was certainly not Lincoln-Douglas debates, but Pennsylvania hasn't been shut down since the March and April. We had the shelter in place and business closures, but they came off months ago. We had an upsurge that we saw coming on in July, and that led to restrictions basically that were recommended by the CDC and the administration in Washington, which I think had an effect on reflattening the curve. I think everybody's concerned now about what's happening as colleges, universities come back. Pennsylvania is considered one of the better states. I think we're third from the top in terms of what our K through 12 schools have done. And in Pennsylvania, all 500 school districts have the ability to do what they want to do. And as to whether they are hybrid, they're open in-person learning, a combination of hybrid, or they're completely remote, and they're making up their own minds on that. And I think Pennsylvania's gotten high marks for having that system in place. So I think and of course Trump's own medical consultant, Dr. Birx, was in Pennsylvania and gave us high marks for what we're doing here. So I think we're doing the right thing. We're in tough territory. We're difficult territory in terms of trying to fight this pandemic, but we've had success in terms of surrounding states, in terms of the other states, and what we've done and the success we've had. And there's a lot of work to do.
And just in reference to the election process, again, we're 4.5 weeks, as you said, away from the election, and him specifically calling out Philadelphia, saying bad things happen in Philadelphia in light of some allegations that some of his poll watchers were kept out of satellite election centers and are not being able to be, quote, kind of watchdogs in those centers. What are your thoughts about him saying that and specifically calling out Philadelphia?
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. I haven't heard that, so I'm not sure when that happened or which cases he's talking about. Okay. So I'll try to find out and get back to you.
Okay, and one last thing, I promise. You may not have heard about this either. It's just a story that we're covering today as well out of Philadelphia. One of the voting warehouses in the Philadelphia
Right.
area was broken into, apparently. A USB and laptop were taken. So there's concern about security when it comes to those facilities. Your thoughts about that, and if there
Yeah,
needs
the
to-
Department of State is looking into that. Again, there was, as far as I know, there was a laptop and a thumb drive that was stolen. There's a lot of work that has been done on encryption and making sure that those pieces of equipment are secure. But that's concerning. I think the Department of State, that's where you should turn to get more detailed information. But I am aware of it, and it's obviously a concern. One more, yes.
Oh, one more. Pressure. Now which one do I ask? I had a couple more.
And you can ask a couple more.
There was a bill, if I'm not mistaken, that's on your desk right now that would relax restrictions on bars and also limit what restrictions could be put on restaurants. Is that on your desk right
No,
now?
it hasn't gotten there yet.
Not there yet. Okay. And then the other question, I was being so witty, I forgot what my other question was.
I hate
The
when
House
that happens, yeah.
the House resolution, I believe it's 1032 that passed committee yesterday. Your thoughts on a select committee that would oversee the
Yeah, I
election?
put out a statement that I think that's really an assault, an attempt to steal the election, and so far it has not even come up for a vote. So I don't know what the status of that is right now.
And I know you put out a statement, but do you think it's important to have such a committee? Do you think that
No,
oversight is
I
necessary?
think it's an attempt to steal the election. I don't think it's important. I think it's important we don't do that. I think that's a big mistake for democracy. And ultimately, we need to compete with each other. We're different parties, different ideas, and that's the way it works. And I think that's great. But we need to make sure that both sides, everybody, does what we can to protect our democracy.
They
This
say,
does not do that.
I'm sorry, they've said that the Republican leadership has said, House leadership has said, that it's necessary because of the Supreme Court decision that ballot drop-offs, et cetera. Why do you say it would be stealing the election?
Because it gives that one party unilateral, why do you think? The unilateral right to determine what they think is a fair election. I mean, that seems to me, we have a Department of State that is been in place in Republican and Democratic administrations. We have been making sure we do everything we can to have free and fair elections that are in fact fair and free. And this is the kind of thing that seems to me takes over that process and sort of tilts it to one side. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.